Let me tell you something right up front. There is no such thing as a wealth gap. Let me say that again. There's no such thing as a wealth gap. Hi, my name is Richard Cuff. I'm president of CTM Marketing, founder of December Business Alliance, and certified master greatness coach here at GetReadyForGreatness.com. And I'm just going to jump on here for a quick minute and talk to you about something that you're going to hear a lot about in my podcast, and as you go through my coaching, you read my books. I'm going to talk about the wealth gap, but not in the way that most people talk about the wealth gap. Usually when you hear talk about the wealth gap, it's counting how much money the wealthy have. By the time you can see wealth, that's called riches. It's just to think of a way of measuring all your stuff. If you have used the principles, the power, the energy of wealth, just like using the energy that is your food, you can eat the food, but if you turn around and take the food that you eat, you run a marathon. That's one way of using that energy that comes from the food. You run a marathon. But then there are some who eat the food, take the energy, and they go and they lift weights. And in lifting those weights, their muscles become big. Or there are some who eat the same food and they run the world record in the 800 meters or the 40-yard dash. The energy translates, is converted within our physical being, but it goes from one place to another place. And that's all wealth is doing. It's moving from one place to another place. And the way that we measure that movement, or one of the ways that we measure the movement of wealth, is in money. How much money does this person have? How much does he have in riches? How big is his car, right? Or how big is that yacht? But because one person drives a yacht and another person lives under the expressway, that doesn't mean that there is a wealth gap. It just means that those two people are using the energy of wealth differently. Now, of course, there are some who, in the analogy that I mentioned earlier, eating food and it converting to energy, and then you're using that energy in your body through your physical body. There are some who eat food and they're severely, in fact, morbidly obese, or they develop some sort of health issue. It's all the same energy. The energy of calories and fat and the stuff that comes from the food is no respecter of person. It doesn't care. So what it's going to do is get inside of you, and it's going to do something based solely on you and your energy. That's what happens with wealth. So if anything, there's the proper use of wealth and the misuse of wealth probably would be a good way of explaining it. But you know what? An even better way to explain what we call the wealth gap is the tuning in of the frequencies. If you're in your car, and a lot of people don't even listen to the radio much anymore, or at the very least, don't change the dials. I can't remember the last time I have literally changed the dial on my radio station. I'm a fan of NPR and the PBS stations, and I love the talk shows and the podcasts that are basically rebroadcasts of podcasts, or the broadcasts that become podcasts. But there's a lot of variety on my NPR station. So I listen to NPR, I donate to NPR, I call in on the local radio station. My energy goes into that radio station, 89.9 on my FM dial, and it has not moved. Doesn't move. I might at some, I don't know, maybe twice a month, maybe if that, punch another radio station, because I have different ways of tuning in to what I want to listen to. I can now find a wide variety of music on my through my cell phone and my digital devices, right? So there's different ways now to access the radio. You don't have to use an AM or an FM anymore. You don't, in fact, even if you did only use the FM station, you're not locked in to only listening to 89.9. You can change the dial to 90.3, 101.6, 109. It doesn't go up to 109. I think like 107 is the highest it goes up to. But what you're doing is you're tuning into the frequency that is being broadcast. That's what wealth is. Wealth is a frequency that's being broadcast. And if you don't have the sound coming out of your speakers, this car right here represents the sound coming out of your speakers. This community represents the sound that's coming out of the speakers of wealth. If you don't have your device tuned in to hear the sound that's coming out of the speakers, and you're only getting static, financial static in your life, it's not because there's a wealth gap. It's not because wealthy people are the problem, and wealthy people, it's not because poor people are coming to take your wealth. And whenever you hear wealthy people talking about why they need to protect their wealth and why they need to make certain that taxes stay low and all of that, that's not wealthy people. That's rich people. That's rich people that are fat on wealth, and they want to remain fat because they're feeding on the wealth energy. That's all. And they're afraid that if someone else figures it out, then they'll lose the power that the riches are giving them. It's not the wealth that gives you power. God gives you the power to get wealth. Wealth does not give you the power to get God. See, all these things are God. So remember that. God gives you the power to get wealth. It's not wealth that gives you the power to get God. God gives you the power to get wealth. You tune in to a totally different station because you're listening to some other nut out there that's got you hating on rich people or hating on poor people or hating on black people, and it's got you tuning out where you're not hearing what God is saying. And because you are not hearing what God is saying, you got to catch the bus. You pushing a shopping cart. You doing whatever you're doing, and you're blaming everybody else. No, it ain't that. It's that wealth is energy, and it travels on a frequency. And if you are not tuned into it, it does not manifest in this physical world. And even when it does manifest as the power to get wealth, see, God gives you the power to get wealth. He doesn't give you the wealth. He gives you the power to get wealth. Then you can use the wealth to get power, but power in this earth. Power over poor people, power to get into office, power to destroy a nation, or power to build a nation. One of my favorite verses, and I'll leave you guys with this, is Genesis 12:2. God says, I'll make out of you a great nation, and I will bless you. And then in the second half of that, he says, and I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. You see what just happened? God is taking his power and giving it to you, and then it's allowing you to take your power and do something else with it. He makes you a great nation and blesses you with power. The power makes your name great, and now you use that power to be a blessing. Guys, don't think of it as a wealth gap. If anything, think of how you are using the ability to plug into the frequency. If you guys want to learn more about plugging into that frequency of wealth, just go to my webpage. I'm making some changes, preparing to launch the podcast, launch my book, and do a whole bunch of stuff coming up a little bit later in the year. And I may even push it back to a festival that we're planning for next year. But guys, focus on the power. And in fact, I probably need to shorten this video. What I'm going to do is this: I've tried to make certain guys that I'm keeping my videos under 10 minutes, so that I can actually get this over onto LinkedIn. So you guys are not going to see this on my LinkedIn page, primarily because LinkedIn will not allow me to put more than a 10-minute video up. But since I've gone over 10 minutes, I'm only going to put this on the YouTube and Facebook. And it may show over on Twitter. But I just wanted to share that with you. I just realized I ran all over my 10 minutes, but I just had to share that. Guys, do you understand that there is no such thing as a wealth gap? There's only the access. That how are you accessing the energy, the wealth? God is giving you the power, but that power comes from these forces that he already has in place, the strong force, weak force, the gravitational force, and the electromagnetic force. Those are the 4 forces that we are consciously aware of. But there's a fifth force that takes us to a 5th dimension. And it's that 5th dimension that we all have access to, that changes the way we use these other forces. The power, life and death are in the power of the tongue. Power. Remember that. So log on to thegreatnessshop.com. That's what I was going to give you a minute earlier. The Greatness Shop. And you can also, if you are inclined to move toward coaching, you can log on to getreadyforgreatness.com. But either way, however you want to tap into the frequency of wealth, it's up to you. And if you want to continue to work the minimum wage job, and that's all you want to tap into, listen, I celebrate you, man. That's you tapping into wealth and being happy, being wealthy, and making only $12,000 a year. I celebrate you. That's me. I ain't paying myself more than $12,000 a year. I don't need to. I don't need the tax burden. I don't need the issues. I'm retired. I'm having fun. So I'm not trying to accumulate riches before I die. Hell, I can't take it with me anyway. But what I am striving to do is to use my wealth to set as many people free as I possibly can. And I'm telling you guys, this PS factor, the coaching, the training, all the stuff that you're going to get working with me, I'm just going to share it. It's going to change your way of thinking. It's going to change your life. And we do that by changing the way we tune into the frequency of wealth. Till next time.